You are listening to the Makers Church podcast. For more information about our community, please visit makerschurch.org.
Well, good morning. Welcome. I'm so glad that you guys are here as we are wrapping up our Won't You Be My Neighbor series. My name is Shalise, and I'm one of the pastors here at Makers Church, and I'm so excited to kind of wrap this up for all of us today. We have had just unbelievable messages over the past few weeks from Pastor Derek, Pastor Mark, our good friend John Huckins, Pastor Glenn, just so many incredible voices sharing into what it means for us to be a good neighbor. And I don't know about you guys, but I have been incredibly challenged. I've been challenged not just in who is my neighbor, but then what do I actually do? What does it mean to not just be a good neighbor, but to care, like Pastor Mark talked last week, about our actual neighborhoods. Like Mark shared this morning, the city that we live in, the streets that we live on, what would it look like for us as the church to make it our aim to be really, really good neighbors? And I love what Pastor Mark shared something last week, and he got up and he said, this is something that I just am kind of thinking through, so I'm going to work it out with all of you. And I was like, I'm going to do the same thing then. Great. Because I think a lot of times, you have that pressure where you're like, I have to know the answer, right? I have to land on this really pristine, powerful truth. But to be honest, as we have been going week through week, I've been waiting for that moment. I've been waiting for that moment where I read this verse and all of a sudden it just clicks and I'm at peace. But to be honest, every time I read this verse, it clicks and then I'm not at peace. It's upending me and what I think and what I feel. And so I just wanted to share this little simple truth with you today. I think that the more that I've wrestled with this passage, the more I'm coming to understand that at least for me, the gospel seems very simple. And sometimes in that simplicity is where I find a lot of the beauty. And there's been this one phrase in this verse that we have read time and time again that I feel like God is just knocking on my door of my heart and my head and my soul and my mind and all these things, saying pay attention to this. And that's what I want to share with you today. So here in Matthew, he says, Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. Now, we've spent the majority of this series talking about what it would look like for us to really be excellent at loving our neighbors. But that phrase, as yourself, has been haunting me. Because that means that I'm supposed to love my neighbor as I love myself. And some of you, you're like, duh, yes, obviously you're so great at self-care. Treat Yourself 2011 is still your favorite hashtag. And you're like, yes, who doesn't love to get away and take care of yourself and love on yourself? And some of you are parents, so you don't know what that's like. And if you're like me, as yourself has never been the highest priority. If I'm really honest, that as yourself part is something that I really, really struggle with. Not just for myself, but it's even something that it's easy for me to project onto other people. When you struggle with something and so you project that frustration onto somebody else? Well, my sweet husband, when we first started dating, I will never forget this. I grew up in a family that was very, active. What's the nice way of putting it? Productive. We were very productive. We're very busy and productive, and we were always doing a bunch of things. And so it was all about go, go, go. And you only take a nap if you're about to die. And you take a nap for 20 minutes, and then you get up and go to whatever that next thing is. And I remember when I met my now husband, Drew, and it was the beginning of our relationship. And I found out, Drew was like, I'm just going to take a quick nap. And I'm like, what did you do today? Really? You haven't even done anything. And he's like, just a quick nap. I'm going to set a timer for 2 hours. And I'm like, what? 2 hours? Are you kidding me? Do you know what I could do in 2 hours? He took a 4.5-hour nap last week. Now, granted, he was sick, but don't encourage that. No, don't encourage that. And I'm like, I don't even know what to do with this, right? So we were long distance for the beginning of our relationship, even into our marriage. Our first 4 months of marriage, we were long distance. And it was one of the first weekends that he had come down from LA, and we were gonna be together for the weekend. And I'm like so pumped. Like, babe, what are we gonna do on Saturday morning? And he goes, well, I had a really long week, so I was thinking we could sleep in. And I was like, I don't even know you. I don't even know who you are. Like, he might as well have said, like, I just want to quit my job and be a stay-at-home boyfriend, because that's how I was feeling in this moment. I mean, I'm not kidding you. It sounds like you're laughing, but I was legitimately like, I don't know if I can marry this guy, because he's just going to sleep all the time. So I went to my counselor, and I was like, we have an emergency. I was like, you need to see me right now. My boyfriend is sleeping, and I don't know what to do about it. And I go to my counselor, and she's so great. I love her so much. And she sits me down, and I'm just like, I won't tell you her name, but I'm telling her everything and pouring my heart out. And I will never forget what she said to me. I'm telling her about the naps, about the sleeping in. And she says, so it sounds like Drew is really good at loving himself, and you're not. And I was like, okay, you're fired. Next. But she said that to me. She said, it sounds like Drew is really good at loving himself, and you are not. See, I use productivity and busyness all the time as my excuse for why I can't slow down. There's always more things to be done. I'm a teacher. I'm an English teacher. There's always more things to be done. More lessons to make, more things to be graded, more household chores to do, more friends that need time and attention. I mean, even when I'm sick, my husband knows this. I don't use my sick days for when I'm sick. When I'm sick, I go to work. My sick day is the day where it's like, it's been 3 weeks and I'm still dying, and I'm like, okay, maybe I should take a day off. And then I take a sick day and I go to Target, and I go to Whole Foods, and I run all the errands, and I clean the house and do all the things that I haven't been able to do, because I can't seem to turn off this thing in my brain that tells me that my value and my worth is reflective in how productive I'm being and how busy I am and how much that I'm doing. See, I love that part of the verse, love your neighbor. That's easy for me. But what I've realized is that I can't just like pick and choose the parts of the verse that I like. I know we do that sometimes, right? We're like, love your neighbor, done. It's like, no, the sentence keeps going. That wasn't a period, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. See, I'm a 2 on the Enneagram. For those of you who don't know what the Enneagram is, it's a personality assessment that helps give language to kind of like your core motivation. So I'm a 2, which means that I am a helper. My core motivation in life is to love others and to feel their love in return. Everything I do is motivated around that need to love and to feel that love in return. Now, I said feel instead of receive, because 2s are notorious for being the worst at actually receiving love. It's okay for me to do it for you, but you can't do it for me. It's okay for me to love on you, but like I'm good. I don't really need, I just want to know that you love me, but I don't need you to like actually love me. But see, there's this part of this verse that continues to challenge me, because I know this about myself. I know that I'm not good with slowing down. I know that I'm not good with asking for help. I know that I'm not really great at like being honest when I need something. And I keep coming back to this, love your neighbor as yourself. As yourself, as yourself. See, the word as is this really annoying preposition. And when you read it in the context of the scripture, the more traditional understanding of love your neighbor as yourself is the interpretation or the definition of as a preposition that would mean like, how you do something in the same manner. So when I say love your neighbor as you love yourself, what most of us hear is in the same way that I love Holly Ann, I need to love myself. The same things that I would do for Taylor, I need to be willing to do for myself. The same allowances that I would make, the same grace that I would show my sister Corey, I have to show that same grace to myself. But see, in the original Hebrew, this word as is a preposition that is actually chemo. And chemo is an interesting preposition because most prepositions make it very clear what the usage is. But chemo actually means like and when. And that's always what's been sticking in my head because every time I read this verse, I'm like, wait, which one is it? Is it love my neighbor as myself or love my neighbor as myself? And some of you are like, that is the same thing. But in my brain, it is not the same thing because I get the understanding of love my neighbor, do the nice things that you would for Mark, do those nice things for yourself. But if kamo means like and when, then the verse is not just commanding us to love our neighbor in the same way that we would love ourselves. What it's actually commanding us to do is to love our neighbor at the same time that we love ourselves. And the reason this has been so challenging for me is that I am notorious for neglecting one for the other. I am notorious for giving, loving, until I get burnt out. And then I'm like, okay, nobody, just me. And then I feel guilty about 2 hours later or 20 minutes after my nap. And I'm like, all right, back in, everybody else, right? And I start these cycles where it's you, then me, then you, then me, then you, then me. But what the use of this preposition kamo means when we read that verse, love your neighbor as you love yourself, means not only can you not substitute one for the other, but they are inseparable. You cannot separate these two things. They are so intricately connected. What that means is that sometimes the absolute best way that you can love your neighbor is to actually love yourself. It means you have to stop, you have to pause, you have to rest, you have to take care of yourself. But then it also means that sometimes the best way that you can love yourself is to actually step outside of yourself and love somebody else. To put aside what you think you need or what you're feeling in the moment and to be able to step up and be there and meet the needs of somebody else. See, I think when we begin to do both of those things, not just one of those things, but when we begin to love ourselves and love our neighbors, not just in the same way, but at the same time, I think that's what Jesus speaks about in Luke 28 when he says, do this and you will live. But there's a big difference between understanding this concept in our heads and then actually letting that truth infiltrate into our hearts and change us. Right? It's really easy to have the head knowledge. Like, we all know we need to rest. I know deep down, even if I don't admit it, that taking naps is fine, even if it's just for the fun of it. Maybe. I'm still working on that one. But I know that, like, loving yourself is so necessary. It is so good. I'm a 2. I get it. You all need so much love. I totally understand that with my head, but why is it so hard for me to just say, help, I need somebody? Because, see, there's a difference between what we allow into our heads and then what we allow into our hearts. And I think that's what Jesus is speaking about when he says, do this and you will live. He's not just talking about the action. He's not just saying go through the motions and you're going to find this abundant life. What he's inviting us into is this deep, deep transformation of our hearts. I love the way that Richard Rohr talks about this idea of transformation. Richard Rohr says, ideas inform us, but love forms us in an intrinsic and lasting way. God is always willing to wait for the lasting transformation brought about by love. God must be very, very patient, surely with history, but also with individuals. Most of us want results that are practical and immediate. See, the immediate practical result would be go out and treat yourself to lunch. Go get a massage, go get a pedicure, go drop your kids off, with somebody else and then say, I'll be back in 3 hours and run away before they can chase you down. Right? The immediate practical result would say, oh, I know how to fix this. Just take an hour for yourself. Take an afternoon for yourself. I don't know about you, but every time my solution is I just need a day. Well, then I just need another day, and then I just need another day, and then I need a month, and then it's you just got back from vacation, you don't need to go on vacation again, right? We're so fixated on these practical, instantaneous results. We want that transformation. But I would venture to guess that most of us here are not living lives that are fully alive because we don't get enough pedicures. I would venture to guess that most of us here aren't feeling at the end of ourselves because we didn't buy, those shoes that we wanted, or because we didn't take an afternoon to go to the beach. I would venture to guess that most of us here aren't living those lives that are fully alive because there's areas of hurt and sin and brokenness in our lives, whether it's recent, whether it's from a long time ago, that we have never, ever received healing in. See, when we began this series, we started with the story of the Good Samaritan. And I love that story. It's a beautiful story. I resonate with all of the characters. It's sometimes I'm the Good Samaritan. Sometimes I'm that priest. Sometimes I'm that Levite. But as I was sitting in that pew right there, and the first week as Derek was reading the story, you ever have one of those moments where it clicks? And I was I am not the Good Samaritan. I'm not the priest. I'm not the Levite. I'm the guy half dead on the side of the road. And I was sitting there and it was just overwhelming to me because I felt guilt, shame, insecurity. I'm not supposed to be the one hurting. I'm supposed to be the helper. I'm the 2. It's supposed to be the 5 that's on the side of the road because they were thinking too much and they fell over, or the 1, the critic inside, overwhelmed them, or the 6 because they couldn't decide what to do, and so they just stayed there, or the 7 because they thought it'd be fun to just line a ditch and see who would help them. It's not supposed to be me because I'm supposed to be the helper. See, I have areas of my life that were so hurt and so broken, but I felt I had somewhere I had to go, and so I just kind of walked by it. I sidestepped myself. I said, you know what, we're not going to deal with that right now, and I kept going. I said, you know what, I think there's somebody else down there that needs help. I'll be fine. It's just a flesh wound. I'll figure it out later. It's not that bad, right? Everybody else has problems. It'll figure itself out. It's okay. And I just realized so often the reason we don't experience that transformation, the reason we don't experience that life that Jesus offers is because we refuse to stop on the side of the road for ourselves. I mean, I've been sick for 4 weeks. It's been the most frustrating and annoying thing. Just keeps coming back. And this community has been so incredible. Every day, Pastor Glenn and the prayer team are how can we pray for you? Every day, Chelsea Knox is what can I bring for you? Our amazing care team reaches out. So many people have just said, hey, I heard you're sick. What can I do for you? And every single time, I'm I'm good. It's fine. No problem. I'll figure it out. I'll sleep for 30 minutes. Maybe that'll fix it. And in this refusal of me receiving this love, it hits me what I am communicating to others by not receiving love is that that's not okay. What I'm communicating when I say, like, I'm fine, I don't need help, is that's how you should be. Like, you're fine, you don't need help. And I realize, like, it's not okay for us as a church to stop at love your neighbor and to not include the as yourself. It is not okay to be a community that doesn't say, I need help. That doesn't say, you know what, I'm not okay. Yeah, it's been a hard week. Here's how you could pray for me. Here's what you could do for me. And if that's you and you're here, I just want to speak against those feelings of shame, that fear that you can't tell anybody, it's been too long. What if they look at me differently, if they know? Like, I don't care what put you on the side of the road. It does not matter. If you hear nothing else this morning, I want you to hear that you are worth stopping for. You are worth stopping for. So what I'd like to do today is I would like for us to end in a time of prayer. I would like for us to end in a time of prayer for one another. Because if we are going to model this to our communities, to our family, to our friends, I think we have to start here. We have to start in this space. And so we're going to have the band come up and they're going to play a little bit for us. But here's what I want to challenge us to do. I'm not going to even ask who needs prayer because I know you all need it. If you didn't, you wouldn't be here. You would not feel a need for God. But what all brings us here to this space is we all feel that need for something. Whether you identify it as God or you don't even know why you're here. Maybe you came for the child dedications and you're sitting here, you're like, why is this lady crying? Like, I don't know what's happening. But I know for sure that big or small, every single one of us here has a need. Some of us are broken on the side of the road. Some of us have been rescued and we're still in that process of healing. Some of us, it's a prayer of praise, of thanksgiving that God has saved us and redeemed what we thought was unredeemable. And so we're going to practice what we've been preaching. And today I'm going to ask you to love your neighbor as yourself. You don't get to be the person that just says, what do you need? You have to also be the person that says, okay, great, now this is what I need. Because I think sometimes inviting people to meet our needs is an invitation for them to connect deeply to God on their own. And I don't want us to rob one another of that chance, to think that we're the only ones that have the answers or have the solution. So what we're going to do is I would like for you to find a neighbor. Now, your neighbor could be a family member you came with. It could be a sibling. It could be a spouse. It could be an absolute total stranger. And what I'm going to have us do is for a couple minutes, I want us to just get together and to just name our needs. What would it look like for you to love yourself? What do you need? Do you need grace? Do you need forgiveness? Do you need mercy? Do you need a job? Do you need patience? Do you need help? We're not going to take a really, really long time, and you don't have to say anything that you don't feel comfortable saying, but I would challenge you and encourage you, whatever that thing is that's been stirring in your heart as I've been talking, that need that you just like don't want to name, I would encourage you to name it. And just briefly share with the person next to you. And then we're going to pray over one another. What I love about the story of the Good Samaritan is that the Samaritan doesn't just help this guy one time. He comes back. He tells the innkeeper, take care of him, and when I come back, whatever it costs, I'll take the costs and I'll make it my own. And it's this reminder to us that this love for others, this love for self is not just a one-time act. It's not a one-time prayer on a Sunday. It's not a one-time waving to somebody, as you pass them in your neighborhood. This is a continuous, ongoing lifestyle of love that we are invited into. And what Jesus invites us into, he says, if you will do this, I promise that you will live. So if you're here this morning and you've never experienced that abundant life, you've never said yes to Jesus, and you want to do that for the first time, or you want to rededicate your life to him, we would love to pray with you. Our prayer team during this song is going to be in the back. And if, as you were sitting with your neighbor, something was stirring and you just feel like, I want to keep going. I need more help. I need somebody else to know. I really, really, really want to get off the side of the road. I want this brokenness to heal. I want these wounds to heal. If that's you, we would love to meet you in the back for a continued time of prayer. But I'm just going to invite all of you to stand with us and we're going to worship. And during this next song, I just invite you to worship just with a surrender and an abandon, as if you weren't weighed down, as if you weren't heavy, but as if life were just light for this moment. And God, we just invite your Spirit here. Jesus, we just say, come, Holy Spirit, and move. Through these words that we sing, God, may chains fall. May brokenness fall. May pain and hurt just wash away in the light of your mercy and your grace, and just a flood of peace over this space. In Jesus' name, amen.
You are listening to the Makers Church podcast. For more information about our community, please visit makerschurch.org.